This lesson is how to evaluate and interpret numerical expressions, including the language of scaling and fraction division. Before we go too far, you need to remember a couple key words. When we talk about sum, that is the end result of an addition problem. Difference is for subtraction, product is for multiplication, and quotient is for division. If you don't have these four terms down, you need to make sure that you memorize those. So here's what our first problem is going to be. We're taking word form of an equation, and then we're turning it into an equation. So something like twice the sum of 3/5 and 1/2, we're going to take that and write it in a particular way. When we see twice, we know that we're going to be doing 2, twice the sum, 2 times. When we see sum, that's talking about adding, so I know that I'm going to be doing 3/5 and 1/2. Remember, we're adding. Now, when I have it arranged this way, when we look at the order of operations, we would have it as 2 times 3/5 and then add 1/2. But this is not what it's asking. It's asking for twice the sum. Okay, so 2 times the sum of these two numbers. So we need to make sure that we include parentheses so that we do add 3/5 and 1/2 together first. And then we can go through and we can solve the problem if that's what it's asking for. Right now, it's not asking you to solve it. Right now, it's asking you to, or I'm asking you to put it into an equation form. Okay? Try the next part on your own. Half the sum of 3/5 and 1/2. And there are multiple ways that you can write these problems down. I just showed you one, but there are other ways that you can try it. One way that you could write this is 1/2 times 3/5 plus 1/2. Because we still have the sum of 3/5 and 1/2, which is here. That's unchanged from our last problem. But now we're saying half the sum, which is the same as saying half of the sum. And remember, of is telling us to multiply. Okay? Another way that you could write this is 3/5 plus 1/2, or you could do 1 5/10 since it's 1 5/10, divided by 2 in this sense, writing it as a fraction. Okay? Or you could write it with your parentheses again, 3/5 plus 1/2, and you can divide it by 2, because remember there are 2 pieces in 1/2. Any of these 3 solutions work. Try this one on your own. The difference between 3/4 and 1/2 divided by 3. Think about how I'm speaking the words and write an equation for that. The way that the majority of you are going to write this is like this, where you have 3/4 minus 1/2, because remember difference means subtraction, and we're doing this first, so it needs to be in the parentheses, and then we're dividing it by 3. But some of you may have done it a little bit differently. You may have also done 3/4 minus 1/2 over 3, because remember fraction bar is the same thing. Or if you wanted to make it a little bit more challenging for yourself, a different preview, you could do 1/3 times, or you can pull out the multiplication sign and do 3/4 minus 1/2. Any of these work. Okay, now try this one, where we already have the equation, but put it into word form. Okay, think about how you would say this out loud and write it down, and then double check it to make sure that it makes sense and it tells you what you need to do first. The way that I would write this is 2/5 of the difference, or 2/5 the difference between 1/2 and 4/10. I would not say 2/5 times 1/2 minus 4/10, because that's not telling you where the parentheses need to go. Okay? The same thing could be true if you say 1/2 minus 4/10 times 2/5. With the order of operations, that would be suggesting that you're multiplying 4/10 by 2/5 before you find the difference. So be careful with your wording.